All right, welcome into Crypto Info, Blockchain Made Easy with your host, Frank the Crypto Tank. Guys, don't forget to tap that like and subscribe on your way in, and don't forget to tap our affiliate Caleb link down below for your one-stop crypto brokerage. Guys, today we have a very, very special episode for you. We have our first live interview with Mr. Jim Bazzani, who is the Senior Business Development Manager for the largest crypto brokerage on the planet, Caleb and Brown. He's nice enough to give us some of his time today. Jim is basically going to give us the difference today between a brokerage and an exchange like we deal with usually, an uphold, a Kraken, something like this. It's a little bit different. We're going to talk about that today. We're also going to discuss Project Crypto. We're going to talk about Trump's 401k decision to allow land, private equity, uh, cryptocurrencies and so forth into into retirement accounts. And also, we're going to discuss the XRP ETF approval. And we've got the 240 days coming up with probably some 45-day extensions we can look at, but hopefully we get at least one XRP approval for ETF filings. Now, Jim, you do find yourself in a unique position here. I've just got a quick pre-question or two for you before our first formal question, sir. Thank you so much for coming on. And I'm wondering, how do you find yourself kind of like in the world of crypto? Did you always do this, for your professional working career? How do you find yourself spinning down the rabbit hole backwards and landing at Caleb and Brown? And, I'm sure you'll love it. That's kind of like my three pre-questions before my first question. Welcome in, Jim. Thank you for joining us, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Frank. I like the nickname Frank the Tank. I think that one will stick with me, so I might be calling you that throughout the interview. But yeah, look, thanks for having me on. I'm very excited to be here and chat about not only Calvin Brown, but all the exciting things going on in crypto. In terms of how I got started in crypto, it's funny, most people when they first get started in crypto, it's really through learning about Bitcoin and then finding their way to other assets like Ethereum. I kind of went the backwards way, where back in 2017, I have a very close friend of mine who's an entrepreneur in the Web3 space today. He introduced me to Ethereum. So I was studying a law degree at the time. I actually was, funnily enough, studying contract law and just thinking about how archaic it was and how you need an intermediary for these contracts to be enforceable. And all of a sudden, I'd learned about Ethereum and the smart contract functionality of Ethereum. And that immediately just piqued my interest almost immediately. And we invested from there on and learned more and more about Ethereum and that ecosystem, and then almost went backwards and then learned about Bitcoin and the origins of Bitcoin and how it all started and blockchain technology. So I've been passionate about the space since 2017 and have followed it ever since. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago I was working at a management consulting firm called Accenture. Was doing a little bit of digital asset, metaverse kind of work there, but mostly around traditional finance and tech. And it wasn't until I'd kind of just made that life decision that actually I'm so passionate about this space. I'm always following it in my personal life. Why don't I actually go all in and go and work for a crypto company? And so that's how my journey at Calvin Brown started. Funnily enough, Calvin Brown really pretty much started at that exact same time that I first got into crypto back in 2016, 2017. So yeah, that's a bit about my journey. You'll find that pretty much everyone that works here at Calvin Brown has a similar sort of story, some far earlier than me, but no doubt everyone is still just as passionate and follows this asset class today as much as they did even back then. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey. How about yourself? What's your journey into crypto?
Very interesting, your journey. Thank you. And you're going to hear me, and I'll tell you that, and thanks for asking. I'll tell you in a sec how I'm going to handle the interview here, just so you know, because my pet peeve is always the insensitivity to the last answer that the person being interviewed just gave. It's like, okay, on to the next question. So I'm going to be, so I love that background and how interesting that you used it first. It's quite interesting to me. And yeah, what an interesting background. Thank you for sharing that. I come from a contracting background and running a few businesses and things in my history. I have public relation communication degree. Um, for what that was worth, very expensive to hold that piece of paper. Still well worth it. I come from a contracting background, and I learned about 6 years ago, I started getting into crypto. I had a couple of friends who, retired from Ethereum and Bitcoin. I had another friend, who, set it up on our computers for my wife and I, a very good friend that I trusted, and Ethereum was at 124, a coin then, and I didn't do, and I vowed to never not do, and so I went crazy researching that. I missed the Ethereum, the Bitcoin. And by doing that, of course, though, we all know that you're going to be learning forex markets while we're doing that. We're going to be you kind of have to. You have to. We've got to cross
Mm.
train and learn about, and then so it's going to be fundamentals. It's going to be then just at least a little bit of TA, a little bit of chart reading and things. We have to, and getting into the cold wallets and how that works and so forth. And then what are we doing on exchanges and things? And by the way, as always, nothing on the channel is financial advice. We know that. I'm not a financial advisor. You could lose your shirt, your pants, your underwear, your socks, your shoes, everything in crypto. Never buy or sell anything because of what we say on the channel. But it's just for education, informational purposes, and I think we all know that. But yeah, if we're going to invest in crypto, Jim, I think all of these things cross train and kind of like 6 years ago, I just had to dip my feet in, seeing my friends retire and latched on to a number of projects, particularly the ISOs and some others. Went heavy on utility, played around with some meme. Did well, made a little money in the space already, just kind of messed around with meme coins and things. And a couple years ago, my wife said, "You know what? You got to get out of my face. You're too much. You're too much. Every 2 minutes, you're 24 hours. This, that, this, the other about crypto. Get the heck out of my face and start a channel, please, would you?" And I finally did. And that's
That's nice,
where
honest feedback from your partner.
yeah, it's honest truth. And I was lucky enough to meet up with a young gentleman who's just kind of making his way in the business world, doing production and so forth, and kind of like friend of the family. And thought to myself, you know what if we got together with this business venture on this YouTube channel? And so he's kind of like, not that I'm Rogan, but he's kind of like my Jamie. And so that's what we do. I've got my guy Luke, and that we do a number of long form videos that I think folks have seen. And this is our first live interview. So thank you so much. We do a live every morning too at 7 a.m. But Jim, yeah, thanks for asking. Jim, where do you want to go next with this whole thing? Because I use Caleb and Brown, my wife and I, for at least 2 years now, and are absolutely pleased. I can go into a little bit of that, or do you want to start with what do you want to start?
Yeah, so I think maybe it'd be best. I'd love to hear your personal experience of how you found Caleb and Brown, and then I'm sure some of the people that are listening to this have maybe heard of us before, but are not quite sure what we do. They hear of a brokerage and they think, well, is that an exchange? So I'd be curious to hear about your personal experience, and then I can actually explain a little bit about what we do, why we're very different to most other platforms and services in this space, and also answer any questions that may arise throughout as well.
Awesome. Sounds perfect. Thank you. Okay. So my personal experience, it's going to be very quick in a nutshell, because I'll probably get into more embellishing later on in the episode. Honestly, thoroughly pleased on a very simplistic, honest, no, thoroughly pleased, my wife and I, with Caleb and Brown. I am very difficult to please when it comes to services, particularly with my money. And so is the wife, and so are most folks. Our hard-earned money we want to be very careful with, and these are large decisions for us, perhaps larger, in my opinion, larger than kind of like normal decisions in our lives. So when I first looked at Caleb, I thought, you know what? Let me check him out first. I did. I researched. I went through all my usual avenues, and then did that again, and then sat about and thought about it, and then went to work, and then went back and forth, a few days, and thought about it back and forth, and thought, okay, you know what? You got to just at least give this a shot, Frank. I mean, so this is how cautious I am. That's me. Not everybody's that cautious, and they probably shouldn't be. I'm kind of crazy like that, but I'm crazy mad scientist researcher like that. But anyway, that was my thing, was to research first. And once I did, I saw, wow, I think this is worth a shot. It was smooth. The whole process was smooth. Getting connected, what the rules of engagement were before I connected, easy enough to see, easy enough to learn and know. Once we got connected, realized we had our own broker, we're like, what, for really, for no money, doesn't cost anything extra to have that. and it is a for real thing, and we weren't sure until we, needed him a few times, and he was absolutely there. And I don't know if I could say his name or not, but I won't right now. But anyway, we have a fantastic individual over at Caleb. Um, won't mention names, but yes, lovely individual, and we were surprised with that, the professionalism, the knowledge that our broker had, the availability that the broker really was available, that all the things we heard really were true. And I'm like, no, and I'm gonna let you get into all of them, Jim. But I'm like, now wait a minute. Call me crazy, but that's not the same as an exchange. This thing operates differently. These people, and so I was sold, and we use them, and I've been using you guys, and I've been engaging more and more and more. Concerning how much I've been, because I'm not going to get into details now. I'm not stealing your thunder, Jim. But we started doing more and more in terms of connectivity and putting more onto Caleb and feeling safer and setting more target orders and so forth, and feeling even more comfortable, knowing I can adjust if we see a crazy, no one's calling the top, but if I see some differences, I'm going to reset some, I can do that if I wish, but I've got target orders set, ready to sell while I'm having an ice cream cone at the ice cream parlor. I don't have to worry. So that's my experience, and the wife will tell you the same, that it's ever been awesome with Caleb. You guys are really, I'm not just saying that because you're on here. You guys, I'm very impressed.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's pretty much, you hit the nail on the head around what we try and focus on as a business. It's all about providing a personalized white glove service for clients, and that they can actually build a relationship with us as a business. It's not, I love exchanges, and that's really where I first got started, but there's no real customer support or service on these platforms, unfortunately. I've had instances where, for whatever reason, I've needed to contact support, and the support ticket stays in the case for 30 days, as an example. With us, it's the exact opposite. So every single person that signs up with Calvin Brown gets their own dedicated broker. That broker is there to assist you throughout your entire crypto journey. So whether you're someone that's completely new to this space, that needs your hand held, that wants education around what are the top assets, how do I invest in them, how do I safely custody, what are the market narratives, what are the key trends right now, all of those things that is very hard to keep on top of, we very much help our clients with, both for the crypto novice, but also for crypto native individuals that maybe want to get a complex trade executed. Maybe they want to off ramp a specific way and not be charged exorbitant fees on withdrawals or have limits. There's a whole range of elements of our service, which I'm happy to jump into, that is really beneficial for all kinds of purchases of crypto in this space. So that's really what we focus on. It's similar to pretty much like having a stockbroker, but it's for your crypto assets. And we've been around since 2016. There's a lot of positive reviews and things about us in the market. You can't really hide in the crypto space when you've been around for so long. So it's funny you mentioned you doing your due diligence on us. We very much encourage all of our clients, before they sign up, before they work with us, see what people say about us online, speak to a broker. It's completely free, so you don't need to put any capital up front to get started. And honestly, it's just a service that I wish I had when I started back in 2017. And we know that a lot of people want that handhold experience. They want someone to call about their portfolio, because often at times we all have ideas about how our portfolio is performing. And it's not until you have a friend or a family member speak to you or review it that are experts in this space that you get a different opinion, and then all of a sudden it opens up your mind to different possibilities. That's very much what our brokers do day to day. They provide that perspective. They provide some guidance on where we're at currently in the market. And a lot of the time, it just helps clients become more sophisticated crypto investors.
Absolutely. No question. I mean, I've found that, and hats off to you guys. You guys are the first Are you guys the first crypto brokerage?
Yeah, I would say at this kind of scale, we've got tens of thousands of clients. There's not many others that have built a business like this. So yeah, I would say comfortably we are.
It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. A lot of now you have your customers are all over this planet, are they not? Who are your customers? Because I often think, because I'm in the US, I'm like, well, the folks in the US and we love Caleb and Brown and everybody I talk to, and they're jumping on board and everything, and they're gaining traction. I see you guys just absolutely crushing it. You guys are growing like ridiculously. And I'm like, wait a minute. Caleb's clients, of course, customers are all over this planet.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I would say it's a fair assumption around the US element of things, because I would say the vast majority of our clients are US based. We're headquartered here in Melbourne, Australia, but we're really a US business. Upwards of 70% of our client base is US based. So that's where most of our focus and attention is going to, and that's where most of our sort of expansion plans and yeah, I guess just our effort and focus is towards the US market. But we certainly facilitate, I think it's over 100 countries that we operate in. We have a lot of clients in very random and bespoke parts of the world that we provide our service to. A lot of European clients, obviously a lot of Australians as well. But yeah, it's a global service. And as I mentioned, we've been around for so long now that we've really matured our operations and how we operate in different time zones. Because I'm sure that's one of the key questions that often comes up, is how do you facilitate building these personal relationships with clients when you're in different time zones? And I guarantee you it's been fine-tuned and tweaked over the years to be the best it can be. But it's also just got to do with the way that we operate in terms of, we have brokers and account managers that work in our US time zone. We have obviously quite a few here in the Australian market as well. And we're able to cover multiple time zones and hand over and do all of those things that make sure that the customer service is as seamless as possible. So it definitely has some challenges at times, as you can imagine. But yeah, it is truly a global business, which is great.
Okay, well, next question. See what I mean? Nah, I don't like that. Now look at we were just talking. No, but
it's not a conversation, is it?
To piggyback, it's so interesting everything you just said there, and to piggyback on the last piece you just said there, it's like, well, I'll tell you honestly, from my I bet everything. Obviously, I mean, honestly, come on, to be very transparent, straightforward. I mean, we have a 14-hour difference between where I am with in the United States and where you folks are, and it has never been a thing. It is easy enough. My wife and I have always, it's afternoon, later in the afternoon, and it's in the morning for you folks, and it's not really a big deal. Luckily, it's not like somebody's sleeping. And as far as I know, you have the emails, and I'm sure you can please explain that to us and how that works with one of your customers saying, or your clients say, hey, sending over this email, can we please do this, this, this? And then you have, as a broker, you have certain services you're just not going to be able to do in an exchange. And I know, please, maybe you can talk about that. And I've got about 9 million things I want to ask you. And I know we only have so much time. Because but anyway, and just please talk about whatever you want, because it's probably going to be one of the 50 things I want to hit on, and we only can hit on just some. So
yeah, so I'll definitely touch on that. You are right in the sense that, especially for the US time zone, it's my morning here. It's early evening in the US. But how we usually operate is, firstly, our brokers work quite long hours, so we usually start quite early here in the mornings, just so we can get sort of that middle afternoon to later evening within the US, and that's when mostly the brokers will call clients. Now, we usually recommend for clients that they book in calls with their broker. Obviously, calling is a little trickier than emails in terms of always being accessible, just naturally because that specific broker, at some point, it'll be the middle of their night here in Australia and maybe the early morning in America. So we do always encourage clients to book in for calls, and it just gives you that peace of mind that you get the full attention of the broker. They can properly review your portfolio, go through whatever you want to discuss. But you're exactly right in the sense that for any trades that clients want to do, and if it's through an email to their broker, that broker's inbox is monitored 24/7. So there's always someone on that inbox. So if you don't want to execute a trade yourself in your own portal, which we give the flexibility for clients to do, you can either trade yourself without the need for the broker, or we have a lot of clients as well that don't really want to log into their account. They just want to email their broker. You can email your broker with your trade. And even if it's 4 a.m. here in Melbourne, there'll be someone in the US office that will be managing their inbox who'll be able to execute that trade swiftly as well. So there is never any period of time where trades can't get done, which we understand is really important because crypto is all about getting things done quickly, especially with how volatile this asset class is and how quickly things can change in the markets. So we very much emphasize that speed of execution. But it's really up to the client in terms of how they want to use the service best, which is relevant for pretty much everything when it comes to even the way that we do custody. We don't force clients to custody with us, but if they're not comfortable using their own hardware wallet, they can leverage our institutional grade cold storage solution. If they don't want to, off ramp with us, for example, they can withdraw and off ramp elsewhere. I very much suggest they don't do that if they want to not get charged fees and things like that, which I can touch on as well. But it's really a service that is really up to the client in terms of how often and frequently they want to use it, and that is even relevant to how often they want to speak to their broker and learn about the markets.
Gotcha. Interesting. And, it's so interesting, why would you want to anywhere else? And, why would you want to off ramp anywhere else? And it's like, okay, so my personal experience, so you can hit on any number of these things, all crucial, in my opinion, crucial advantages of Caleb. The one-to-one, right? Keeping funds one-to-one. Not commingling anybody's funds, Fireblocks institutional grade custody that you'll offer if you want to hold your stuff on Caleb. I use an Alipal, a decent Ledger Nano S old school, Ledger Nano X, and Alipal, and another one, I think. But and so does the wife, and we've had no questions whatsoever taking off of uphold or whatever, as long as something you can't pull off like a VeChain. But it's been so easy, the process, the usability of Caleb's site, and also for me to go on. Literally, I didn't even fumble with it. The usability of the site when I went on and set my my sell orders. I was like, are you serious? This was easy. And it comes in fast too, by the way, relatively quick. I mean, actually, that's a chain thing, huh? That's probably a chain thing. But anyway, how fast it can come over from uphold, that's a network thing, I think. But
Are you still there? Okay, I think we might be having some technical difficulties with Frank the Tank. But I can speak to that side of things as well, and the ability to on-ramp and off-ramp with Caleb Brown. So I might just add on to that point until maybe we get the host to come back in. But are you there?
Are you back on? Sorry. Sorry
all
about
good.
that.
All good.
Yeah, world know we had the most incredible show planned for today, and we're going to do that for you next time. On the next slide. But yeah, thanks for bearing with the rawness and I think coolness though at the same time of doing a stream like this. Yeah, thanks for bearing with us. But yeah, for sure. I don't know all what you heard of what I said, but the smoothness and the ease of which my wife and I used, all the cold wallets that I use, the Ledger, the S, the X, the all of them, the Alipal, how easy it was, and how easy it was to set all my orders too, my sell orders and the wife. How quickly everything came over just as fast, I guess, as the network will let it come over. But everything came over, no problem. You can go in and check and see everything's in there. And it's just a nice feeling for me to be able to go into Caleb anytime I want and know it's institutional grade custody, that I can just, and it's safe. And I still hold a lot of cold wallets too. Full transparency, but I think that's smart to do too. That's my opinion, but anybody do what you want. Put it all on Caleb if you want. I mean, it is institutional grade custody. And, it's sitting there ready to go. I mean, that's the thing, is that literally you could be doing anything. And if things pop off, you're selling on the way up the mountain, hopefully somewhere on top of the mountain and down the mountain. And if you want to change them, you could change them, your orders. So, and hopefully it's not crashing, because I went out to uphold. And by the way, okay, here's the deal. Now look be careful what you say live now, right? Be nice to everybody and all the exchanges. Everybody knows. Okay, so it's fine because here's the deal: exchanges do operate differently, and the way that they agree to play ball with the public is different from the way an exchange. If we're going to stick to facts and be accurate, it's different from a way that a brokerage like Caleb, you know, legally engages with their clients. It's different. I mean, they're running an exchange, and correct me if I'm wrong. And hopefully, you can speak on that too. But yeah, it's different. It's a different type of operation the way they do. So that you can only get 50K off a day, daily withdrawal on Uphold, and 100K a day on Coinbase, and 250 if you have the pro account, and so on and so forth with these exchanges. Kraken, I think, is quite a bit, but with Caleb, as long as we, have the bank make the template kind of thing, right? That existing transaction with the wire that comes from Caleb to the bank, go ahead and talk to the bank manager. It's for informational purposes only. This is what I did. Make your at least 2K, and that's an aggregation, an aggregate of, it can be a number of coins, but it's got to be that 2K transaction. Go ahead and pull it off, send it over to as a wire transfer. Make sure you have good relationship with your bank manager or whatever, and to let them know, hey, I'm going to do some larger transfers perhaps. And you know what? If I want to pull out 750K or 1.5 mil in a transaction and clear that at a time with Caleb, try to do that on an exchange. Anyway, I feel like I want to drop the mic after that one.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point, and it's something that I feel like most people in the crypto space, they don't practice their exit strategy, or at least know what their exit strategy is, until they're at that point and have been ready to exit the market, which I always encourage people. And I've again, this is all from personal experience in the past of trying to cash out of a certain crypto portfolio, back in the day, and all of a sudden I'm doing it on a platform that's going to charge me a lot and going to set limits for me. And because you're at that point of essentially, I just want to get my assets off, you kind of just cop it essentially. But with us, yeah, you're right in the sense that, look, we'll facilitate all amounts of withdrawals, and there'll be no fees on top of that. So if you are looking to transfer or withdraw out 500K, a million, 5 million, we'll do that all in one go. We'll work with our banking partners in the US, who will work closely with the client's bank account to make sure that withdrawal goes through smoothly. And again, that's the benefit of having your broker. You can actually call someone to check in to see how it's going. Often at times, at some point of that withdrawal process, it's out of our hands, it's in the bank's hands. We've found that they usually don't have any issues receiving funds. It's usually at the deposit phase where they start to kick up a fuss. But certainly with us, it'll be stress-free, it'll be seamless, and it'll be at the amount that you want. And I personally, as I mentioned, experienced where I've had to withdraw increments each day, and it took me over 15 days, and it's just a stressful experience that you don't want a part of. So when it comes to off-ramping, I would say we're probably one of the best, if not the best, in this space, simply because we'll do it all in one go. You won't be charged, and you'll actually have someone there to talk to make sure that is going through smoothly. So on the off-ramp side, I definitely agree. And you touched on cold wallets. We are big proponents of self-custody. We encourage it for clients, but we very much just offer that cold storage solution for those that want to use it, or maybe they're not comfortable becoming their own bank. So they'll hold some of their assets with us. As you mentioned, some will hold all of them. Again, it just becomes down to personal preference and what the client wants to get out of the experience. You also mentioned as well, which I wanted to touch on quickly, was like the accessibility element. And someone asked me on a live stream the other day, why is institutional grade custody with you better than a cold wallet? And I'd say it's not really better, it's just a different alternative. Although I said, like, the one clear benefit in my opinion is that you get the benefit of the cold storage element. Your assets are held one for one, as you mentioned, in cold storage, but you also get the accessibility benefit, which is not something you get with your cold wallet.
No doubt about that. Huge point.
The example I always love to give is I was traveling overseas. It would have been about 3 or 4 years ago. Most people, unless you're crazy, don't take your hardware wallet with you, just because, you're almost asking for your stuff to get stolen if you travel with it. So naturally, you keep it at home. And at that time, it was when the USDC, so USDC is one of the largest stablecoins, it started to depeg, which means that usually it's 1 for 1 for the US dollar. It was actually starting to depeg, so it was less than that. I think it got down to 80, maybe even 75 cents. And I had a whole bunch of USDC on a hardware wallet back home, and I was helpless. There was nothing I could do. I wanted to sell out of it, make sure I didn't lose that just because I didn't know whether USDC was going to collapse. And it was an incredibly stressful situation. And again, that happens to a lot of people that travel that maybe want to do a quick trade because the market turns overnight and they just can't. So with us, at least, you could be in the Bahamas on the beach, sipping on a martini or whatever, some cocktail of your choice. And you can email your broker and you'll be able to get that trade executed within the minute. So again, the accessibility element plus the cold storage is, I'd say, the one clear benefit. But it really just depends on the client and how they want to leverage our custody versus their own solution.
No question about that. What a great point. Like, just kind of seeing the light bulb going off of that, the marrying of those two things. That's what we're looking for, right? That's what we're looking for, is to not be a millionaire on paper, be able to actually do this thing and actually have this thing be set and not just ride bags up and down, you know.
Mm.
And if we think about it, isn't it true? Like, we sit there and it's like, okay, there's some key elements to doing this thing. Never financial advice, obviously, right? I mean, there's some key elements. If I'm going to invest in crypto, in my opinion, what makes sense: research the living daylights out of something, actually purchase well, where you can actually pull it off that exchange if you do that, or you could buy with you folks, right? With Caleb.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So you purchase on a Caleb, you got Fireblocks custody, you're already sitting there anyway, institutional grade custody. Another key point is, of course, the storage, another kind of key element. And then, of course, it's kind of like setting sell orders and making sure that you've got the cash out phase all set with your bank and everything else. And it's like, to me, those are the crucial steps. And on the final crucial step, in my opinion, not be set up with something like a Caleb, for all the reasons we're not even finished yet with the differences and the benefit. It's like, my goodness. And now, again, I'm a pain in the butt when it comes to products and services. I can be. I'm nice, please. I'm nice. But I'm difficult as far as I want the best. When I'm shopping, and so if Caleb, yeah, if Caleb can handle me, then. But yeah.
No, I very much agree. I mean, we have a lot of clients that, as I've mentioned, want to get different things out of the service. Some are more high touch than others. Some want to speak to their broker every day. Some just want to catch up each month, right? It's a service that's fit for the client and what they want to get out of it. But I totally agree that, look, if you're going to invest significant amounts of your net worth or even just a portion of it into this asset class, it makes sense to become as educated as possible about it. So your decision making when it comes to buying, selling, taking a bit of profit, maybe setting up target orders, is as informed as possible. And so that's really our main focus. Is, yes, we're a platform that you can buy, sell, swap, and custody crypto with us, but we're really a service to help educate our clients so they become more sophisticated investors, which ultimately means they get the better financial result out of this all. Because this is a volatile space. It isn't like the stock market. Things can go up by 20% a day. They can also go down by 20% a day. And there are risks in terms of panic selling with an asset that you don't really understand that actually has good long-term fundamentals. But it also, the other way, and I've certainly been guilty of this, is holding an asset for too long when it's performed really well, and getting a little too greedy and not taking profits on the way up is also something that we always talk to our clients about. So it's a full encompassing service with us. And I think most crypto investors will really benefit from having their own broker with Caleb and Brown.
For sure, man. I mean, we have so many things. So it's a 3.5. Let's talk about that. So it's a 3. Well, actually, let me quickly jump off real quick, and we're going to jump back to Caleb and traits, attributes, and how it's different from an exchange. Real quick, if I can ask you, because folks that are in different countries, whether they're in the U.S., they're in Africa, I don't know wherever you are on the planet, where you can purchase crypto. Isn't it true? It's like, well, I mean, I don't know. My thought is that people get concerned, I think, because their crypto brokerage might be in a different country from them. And I think people don't realize, maybe you can cover it very quickly, how Australia, the regulations in Australia are rather stringent. The US is quite nice with the regulations, and Australia, your regulators work hand in hand with you there. You didn't experience the choke point 2.0 that we did here, by our lovely, three-letter agency. And so, can you talk about how, you know, it, Australia is awesome as far as how the US sees them, and you're coming to the US anyway, aren't you, as well?
Yeah, yeah. So I can, we are in the US currently, but this is a very good question because I was recently in the US a few months ago at a conference that we were sponsoring, and I reckon this was the most common question or query about our business. Most people love what they've heard about us, especially people within the US, but there is a level of hesitancy just because, well, you guys are in Australia, right? I don't really understand how that works. I live in the US. Um, it's funny, some US residents have heard some things about Australia and some of the plans and things that have happened through COVID and things like that, and maybe a little less trusting of the of the Australian government as well. So I'm happy to chat about this because it's probably something I answer quite a bit on. The end of that question, the short is yes. So we've just opened up an office within the US, and for all of our US clients, I would say the majority, they actually fall under our Kellen Brown LLC US incorporated business. So yes, we're headquartered here in Melbourne, Australia, but we actually have a US Caleb Brown as well. And we have an office presence in Fort Lauderdale in Florida. We will most likely have one on the west side pretty soon. And then hopefully maybe in the middle part of America as well. So for any US client of ours, they're for all intents and purposes falling under our US entity, and they really just follow US law. In terms of the regulation and I guess the perspective of the crypto markets here in Australia, they're quite supportive here in terms of the Australian government of the digital asset space. We're one of the first governments to, and we'll probably touch on this later, our Australian Stock Exchange at one point tried to build a blockchain project where a lot of our shares would be settled on a blockchain. Now, it was unsuccessful, but it speaks to, I guess, the belief of digital assets in the Australian market. All I would say is that we're just very behind in terms of legislating it. And I know that our US friends have seen that in the past. That's very much now changed in the US, which is a positive for us because ultimately the the Australian government here and our parliament usually follows narratives and trends that the US are focused on. So we are positive that things will change here in Australia, but it's one of those things where supportive, but not enough legislation yet. So that's where we're at currently here. But certainly, look, if you're based in Europe or you're based in America, you fall under the tax regulations and laws of that entity. Just because you're using our service to invest in crypto doesn't mean you fall under Australian law. And I want to make that very clear because I know that a few of the people in the US that I spoke to at this conference were quite scared about that. You're a US resident, so your laws and regulations and tax consequences are at a US level. It's got nothing to do with because we're an Australian business. So yeah, just wanted to make that clear. But yes, we're very much involved in the US market. We have a US LLC. So we are very, very much focused on that market and our US residents.
And I remember, interesting, Jim, and I remember that coming up as a, I don't want to say a sticking point, but a point of clarification, required by my wife and I to be like, now, hang on a second, let's make sure. And by the way, it was very explained very nicely by our broker, very simply, just the way you did. And so, yeah, there's an education piece here, right, to bridge this I would say probably smaller chasm versus your regular customer or client, right? And anything else, right? Because blockchain folks, crypto folks tend to be pretty savvy and pretty slick and everything, and they can catch on and do the research very quickly and be like, all right, cool. Caleb looks good. I understand this. Like, that's why they got into the crypto space, because they're able to do that very quickly, technically, and research quickly and have some kahunas, some, and just say, I'm doing this thing. I'm going to jump out on a limb and do this cold wild thing. I'm going to learn it, And so, right, that's the type of personality. So I can't see it being that big of a deal. I'm sure it's not. You guys are growing in a ridiculous way. It's crazy. I tried to get on the phone with my broker, at least 6 times a day. He was having it in the beginning, but not after a while. He's like, Frank, I can't talk to you 6 times a day. I'm busy now. We're growing. This is crazy. Can't hold your hand like this, buddy. But no, so yeah, anytime we've needed our guy is awesome. Um, and there's so many things I want to. Well, do you want to keep going on this because there's so much more we can discuss on this? I think no minimum amount to get started, but if you want to cash out, 2K at least, and that can be an aggregation of an aggregate of a bunch of coins. Uh, you know, um, a whole bunch of things that people kind of are going to want to know. 3.5% fee to sell, swap. What is it? Sell, swap, trade.
Yeah, so it's just a flat fee that we charge, and it's just a 3.5% fee on a buy, sell, or swap. It's just a transaction fee, and that's the only fee that we'll ever charge. So it's a little different to how other exchanges and platforms work, where often they'll have a really small transaction fee, and then they'll charge things like spread and slippage, which are a bit more hidden and hard to see. So yeah, it's just that transaction fee. So there's no custody fees to custody with us. There's no fee to speak to your broker. As we mentioned before, no withdrawal fees and limits as well. So that fee is all encompassing of the entire service. But we find it's a fair fee given just some of the hidden costs that you'll find on some of these other platforms, which tend to actually add up over time.
I agree. I agree. As someone who uses, Uphold, Coinbase, blah, 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 and Caleb and Brown. Yeah, I agree 100%. Now you scour 14 different liquidity providers. Unlike, of course, now I don't know. Does like Uphold do that? I'm not sure, but the way they operate when it comes time to get your best price, your best sell price for your coin. And can you talk about those? And is that right, or is it a different amount of liquidity providers that you get the best price for us when we sell? Can you talk about who any of those are?
Yeah, so I mean, I can't speak to the exact amount. All I would say is that we have a whole range of liquidity providers, OTC desks, DEX, central exchanges as well, where we pull liquidity from a whole range of different sources, which ultimately means that we've pretty much got the best in-house liquidity, and we can facilitate all trades regardless of whether it's a bear market or a bull market. I can't speak to other exchanges, although I know, like say, Coinbase, for example, they're their own market maker. So they have their own liquidity pools, which is great for a lot of reasons and has a lot of benefits. But it's kind of like a little bit of like a single point of failure as well, where if they dry up in a particular asset, I don't imagine Coinbase would, just given the size, but if they would, that's where you can really start to see significant spreads. And, we even see some businesses use dynamic spreads. So that's where there's significant demand for a specific asset, say XRP. These businesses will identify that, and that spread will actually become wider and wider as there's more demand. Naturally, people are willing to pay a worse spread for an asset they have a lot more interest in purchasing. So with us, we pull liquidity from a whole range of different areas. It means that you get the best market price possible, both on the buy and the sell. We also have a whole range of ways that we help on the execution side as well. So the example I love to give is we have an operations team here with an experienced group of traders. We often will have clients that will look to sell out of a really large position of an asset that's maybe a bit illiquid or doesn't have a huge market cap. That if they were to do that on an exchange or another platform, that trade would just get automated specifically at that entire price. That may move the market negatively, which ultimately means they're getting a worse price. Whereas with us, the broker will speak to the client and say, hey, look, we've noticed that you wanted to do this trade. If you were to do this all in one go, it's going to move the market. You're not going to get a great result. You're going to incur significant slippage. We can actually trade slice the deal for you, so we can do it in smaller batches. Yes, it's going to take a little longer, but ultimately it means that you're going to get the best price possible over the long period of time of selling out of that position. So we do things like that as well, where it's a bit more hands-on, it's a bit more bespoke than maybe what you'd experience elsewhere. But ultimately, liquidity is the number one thing that I think most people are quite conscious of when it comes to making sure they're getting the best price possible. So we very much focus on that and ensure that our operations team are doing the best they can for our clients and getting them the best price possible.
Interesting. And yeah, liquidity. Learning this, you asked about my background, and I kept hearing this word, my first year or two into all this, I'm like, liquidity, what a cool word. I'm like, maybe it's important. I don't know. And as you do this, you're like, yeah, number one. And anything we're doing financially, it's liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. And I wonder if, and please, you don't have to comment on this, Jim, I wonder if, thinking out loud, could this be what the concern could be? Could this be part of the concern on some of the exchanges where, they don't have access to the liquidity providers? And so when, crypto go crazy in price and goes up, could that be a Jim hit the servers overloaded button and the exchange crashes? I mean, I don't know. I always wonder that. I'm sure it's not that. I'm being funny, but could that be the issue with why perhaps the exchanges crash, or is it just traffic? I don't know, and you don't have to comment on it. I always wonder this.
Yeah, look, I probably won't comment on things that are occurring today because I haven't seen it recently. But I can speak from personal experience, which is always great because I'm just speaking from my personal experience as an investor, that I've been on exchanges that have had downtime in really significant, important periods of the market where I haven't been able to access my assets to make a trade, whether that's to buy an asset that I think is super undervalued, or the other way when I'm desperately trying to trade out of a position. I have experienced that before. And I also have experienced where, they've capped me on how much I can trade for a particular asset. And now I'm not going to say that that's always the case, but if that does happen, it usually means they don't have the liquidity to facilitate enough trades for that. So they're capping you in order to ensure that they still have liquidity for the next investor. That's usually the case. It's usually got to do with liquidity. So look, that's never happened with us here at CMB. As I mentioned, we're quite a mature business that's been around since 2016, and that's encompassing of all things from the way that we work with clients, but really our back ends. I would say that we're very a back end focused and resourced business. There's only a few of people like me and our brokers that are really on the front end. We really make sure that we've always got liquidity at any period of the market. Our product team, we have a really big product team to ensure that our portal is constantly running at all periods of the market. But even let's just say in the unlikely scenario, Frank, that our platform was to go down, well, that's how the brokerage model works best, because you still have the contact details of your broker. So you can still get trades done because you can always email your broker and say, hey, please execute this trade. Please buy this asset. Please sell this asset. So look, touch wood, we've never had issues with our portal going down. But even if it did, that wouldn't stop our business from operating, which is the benefit of that personalized service. The benefit of having the contact details of your broker is that you can always get something done. So yeah, who knows? I mean, I'm hopeful that we won't see any more downtime on these platforms. But if I sort of can lean on anything from past experience, I'm certain it will happen again, unfortunately. So it's just important that people are across that. And it's just the nature of, I guess, being in the crypto space, unfortunately.
For sure, man. I mean, I'm just like ready to jump up and down at my desk and be like, oh my gosh, why would you not be on Caleb Olga? But never financial advice. But anyway, just all these points considered, right? The differences. There are more, right? I mean, there are a few more here we can lay out. Well, what do you think we missed here, Jim? As far as key characteristics of Caleb as a brokerage, and why it just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of touched on it without kind of explaining it. So the custody solution side is really important, and I might just go into a bit more detail on that, just because I know that security and liquidity are probably the two main questions I get most often. So with Caleb and Brown, if you decide that you want to custody your assets with us, we have created an institutional grade cold storage solution, which has been developed by Fireblocks. Fireblocks are the preeminent custody solution provider in this space. They're used by the largest banks in the world, the largest crypto institutions. And we've built a very foolproof and strong custody solution for clients, where if you hold them with us, your crypto assets or even your fiat just sits in cold storage. It's accounted for on a one-for-one basis, which ultimately means that, look, we aren't charging custody fees for it. We aren't trying to earn a yield elsewhere. One of the things that was happening on FTX was if you custodied your assets with them, they were then trading those assets elsewhere to earn a rate elsewhere. Like, we're doing none of that. It just sits in cold storage until you decide to make a trade or withdraw those assets. which ultimately means that, you know, this won't happen because Caleb Brown is doing very well. But if we went bankrupt tomorrow, we'd be able to actually facilitate all those withdrawals for clients. We'd never have any issues with that because everything's accounted for one. And even, you know, a step further, we'll actually use our own liquidity to get trades done on behalf of clients. So often that will mean that clients will not have their assets exposed to those liquidity providers that we spoke about. We'll actually use our own mandated liquidity that we have as a business. We'll execute the trade, or we'll hold those assets on behalf of clients, and then we'll actually just balance it up at the end of the day. So it means that client assets never really have that much exposure to any counterparty or liquidity provider, which again is quite unique and different to how most exchanges or other platforms work. So assets are safe and comfortable with us. It's free of charge. And again, you can withdraw them and they're accessible to make trades with them whenever you need. So I think the custody element is something that is quite interesting and what a lot of our clients use us for. And then the other part that maybe we didn't touch on that I'll quickly mention now is that with us at Caleb Brown, you can invest as an individual. You can also invest in crypto through your LLC or through your trust as well, which is really valuable for a lot of people. I mean, I invest into my individual capacity, which is a bit more risk taking, it's a bit more risk on. But I also have a family trust set up with Caleb Brown, and I invest on behalf of my family, and I want them to have the long-term exposure to certain assets. So with Caleb Brown, you can invest in through different entities, which I think is really valuable as well.
That's a great point to bring up, and I got to tell you, I didn't realize that. That's a very interesting option that you can connect to family trust. What about? Can you talk about IRA connection and things like that? Like some of these,
Yeah, so IRA at this stage
Mhm.
at this stage we can't offer IRAs. It is something we're looking into, and it's probably a good segue into that executive order that Trump signed the other week around 401ks and crypto investments. It is something that we're hoping to be able to offer in the future. Self-directed IRAs, I think, probably even sooner than maybe 401ks. As you can imagine, with any retirement funds, it's a little trickier in terms of ensuring that from a compliance perspective and legislative and regulatory perspective, we're adhering to all the requirements that we need. But if you are Australian based, which I don't imagine there'd be many, but if you are, and you know, in Australia it's called a self-managed super fund or SMSF, we do allow for SMSF onboarding. So if you are Australian and you want to invest your retirement funds into crypto, you can do it that way with us. But for our US residents at this stage, we don't offer 401k onboarding. But again, given that Trump's now signed an executive order on it, we're hopeful it'll become easier to allow for that and allow for us to do that moving forward.
What if I speak like I'm Australian? Would that work? No.
So, you can try. I found that the Australian accent's pretty hard to imitate, actually.
It is tough. I love it though. It's got to be my favorite accent. Truth be known. Anyway, so there's so much more we could talk about here. I mean, do you want to? Let's see. I mean, there's more about Caleb I want to talk about though. Let's see. You got more time for us here today?
Yeah. I can talk more about Caleb Brown. Can talk about what's happening in the market. I'm easy. Whatever you want to chat about, Frank the Tank.
Okay. Well, we can certainly jump back to let's circle back around to Caleb, because I think perhaps what may happen, and I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think I may have some light bulbs go off with a question or two that I think may be important concerning Caleb that will be sparked with a couple of these questions I have for you. Oh, by the way, KML, AML, and KYC, obviously, you guys are all good with that. And I know we didn't mention that. That's kind of an obvious, but you guys are all down with that whole thing, correct?
Yeah, correct. Like I'm a big proponent of decentralization as much as the next individual, and you know, I use decentralized exchanges and what have you. But you know, for us to operate legally as a business, we do require the KYC of our clients, and really to be able to experience the full service in terms of allowing clients to on ramp and off ramp through us. We just need to know your identity. It's just simply a requirement for us to operate as a business, and we understand that a lot of people in the crypto space want to remain anonymous. But unfortunately with us, we do require to know your identity. It's just the nature of the beast. But that doesn't stop individuals from using our service and then, withdrawing and using a decentralized exchange or what have you. So, yeah, we do require the KYC and AML side of things as a business, and we follow those, stringently.
Which we love to hear, right? Because I have friends that, kind of, they'll do the DeFi thing, and I'm sitting there going, I love that you guys love to, the whole stable. And it's actually interesting to be flexible and versatile, and a hot wallet has a little extra that is at risk. Right? With what bridges usually with a hot wallet, that it could be at risk, but the flexibility of that. So there's a lot of
Mm.
interesting, in my opinion, never financial advice, but the versatility of the crypto space to keep a little bit on, nothing wrong with keeping it on Caleb with institutional grade custody. But you know what I mean, with fire blocks. But somebody want to keep a little bit on cold or whatever. Nothing wrong though with keeping it on Caleb, and like you said, the readiness of that, the ability to have the double punch of the safeness and the readiness, ready to go. It's crazy, potent, in my opinion. I'm not a financial advisor. Killer stuff. Jim, on we've got Project Crypto. We've got 401k, which is monstrous. Executive order signed. Allowing private equity, which is kind of unheard of. This is crazy stuff. Talk about leveling the playing field. Allowing, well, private equity fine, but land, real estate, digital assets, able to come into retirement now. Um, Boy, get jumping on that IRA thing, Caleb, over there. Don't miss the boat on
Well
this.
and well and truly, right? Like both of those, 401ks, that's $1 trillion worth of assets that could be now going into digital assets. It's a pretty big unlock for the industry, which I think is really exciting. I'm interested to see what are like the parameters and rules around it. Obviously, Trump's just signed the executive order, so the rest of the actual fine details of how it will work, I'm sure, will come out later. Ultimately, it's a massive net positive, right? And I think people should be able to have that exposure to invest part of their retirement savings into an asset like Bitcoin, like ETH, like any sort of major they want. But I am curious around like where do we stop? Like what's the line in terms of what assets you're allowed to invest in and not? So like as an example, if I can put all my retirement funds into like a meme coin or Doge, for example,
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden in a bear market, that may lose 50% of its value. And all of a sudden we've got a whole bunch of retirees that have lost a large portion of value in their retirement
Or the
savings.
rug
I
gets
think
pulled
that
on a
will have,
project. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be parameters and guidelines around what assets you can actually invest in. But certainly there's a little bit of risk involved in that I think not a lot has been spoken about. It's obviously still a positive, but I think that's interesting. And then Project Crypto, I mean, I spoke before about how in Australia we had a pilot for the Australian Stock Exchange looking to facilitate trades and shares on chain. And that's seemingly what Paul Atkins, the new SEC chair, is proposing. So actually tokenizing stocks and other traditional financial investment vehicles that I think is going to improve the way in which traditional finance is done. If you think about how long it takes for settlements to get done for stocks, the efficiency, the costs, being able to move that on chain, I think is quite significant. And I know that we're seeing some of these sectors like real world assets on ETH that are really starting to become quite strong sectors and use cases in crypto. I have no doubt, the tokenization of real world assets will continue to be a thing. But to see the support of it at a government and institutional level is quite significant. It wasn't that long ago that the SEC chair was Gary Gensler, and not only was he not promoting and introducing things like this, he was actually going after crypto businesses and taking them to court. So the dichotomy between the two in the space of what has it been like less than a year, it's shown how far we've come, but also just how exciting the future will be. We've got that support now, which not only is great for the US market, but as I mentioned, and I think sometimes the people in the US take this for granted, is that, look, a lot of countries follow the US and follow the legislation and follow the focus in certain innovative areas. And that's no different with crypto. So we're going to see it not only at a US level, but I think now at a global level, we're going to see more and more support for crypto, which is huge and exciting. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I just think as you're talking and as this whole thing is going on, this whole interview is going through, can, you know, through the segment, I'm just sitting here going, okay, calm down, calm down, calm down, Fred, calm down, buddy,
I got to
calm
do that
down.
as well sometimes.
Kind of like knowing what we, know, and I love lots of folks in this space. I mean, folks who'd be watching this right now, everybody out there, you folks, you know, you're into this kind of stuff. We're, never financial advice, but a lot of us likely bought nice projects, researched well, and are sitting here going, wow, this is kind of crazy. We really did find something that is making its way and interfacing with the real world and blockchain technology, and eventually, of course, with AI, which can get rather scary and matrixy. And we can talk about that maybe in another episode. We can do a whole episode on that. But you know, it's so interesting to people that are in this space, I think, going and so exciting, going, oh my gosh, are we at a turning point where um, you know, it's it's at a point where I'm seeing, okay, what is it? Is it Project Crypto that means to, of course, ease up on we can discuss that next if you'd like, or Paul Atkins is saying, hey, you know, let's go ahead and revisit and reassess some of these regulations and things, not changing any laws, but let's reset, reassess and see and ease up on crypto and create some clearer, a clearer regulatory framework so innovation can take off crypto wise in the US like no other place. Because we got Singapore and Dubai that are crushing it crypto wise. But, we want to do it here in the US. So my thoughts are, after that huge rant, I mean, my thoughts are, oh my gosh, we're in early. We're in at that point kind of thing, in my opinion, where the internet phase was, where it was like, hey, you know what are you doing with those internet stocks? You're crazy, blah, blah, blah. Those tech stocks are like, what do you think you're doing with that cell phone? What do you think you're Captain Kirk with a flip phone? It's like, come on. And Metcalf's law didn't kick in yet, right? So only like 3 people have a cell phone, doesn't do a lot of good, right? But all the towers are up, all the cell phones are up. So now are in everybody's hands. So now we have the rails laid with cell phones and with the internet, crypto riding on top, along with the interface through with AI agents and so forth. I think we've got a very interesting world coming up because finally now, of course, with Ripple and XRP, we've got this ODL solution ready to be turned on. The permission features ready to be turned on. The XRPL for our XRP fans out there. We are an XRP centric channel. And, you know, since we're ready to see money now, value move in 3 to 5 seconds for 0.00001 ZERP or XRP, right? A million drops ZERPs, which, by the way, could get costly if XRP goes to 10 grand a share coin. Somebody explain that to me, please. But I always think about that. It has me up at night. But I shake in the middle of the night. The wife's like, what's wrong? I'm like, XRP goes crazy. How much is a transaction going to cost? This is nuts. But anyway, still be cheaper than a lot of stuff out there, right? Doesn't matter. But yeah, value is about to move the way information moved, like a UFO across this freaking planet. And it's about to be wacky. In about 3 to 5 years, we're about to see this Cambrian explosion, in my opinion, of the real worth and value of blockchain technology in the world, along with hashgraph technology. Again, that's for another episode. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean that was a lot there, but I totally agree, and I think something that I always sometimes guilty of is thinking about it from the developed world and how fast things are progressing when it comes to crypto adoption, and it certainly is. But you mentioned everyone's got a mobile phone now and everyone has internet, which is very true even in the developing world. What a lot of people don't have in the developing world is reliable banking rails or even a reliable government. And what's kind of the benefit if you don't have that, or I guess the alternative if you don't want to use the banks there or trust the government when it comes to your fiat currency is crypto. And so we're starting to see adoption of crypto in areas like Africa really start to rise. I know this is a bit sort of niche, but we really do think about crypto adoption at a global level now, and it's really starting to grow just because all you need is a phone and an internet service to actually start to use a new form of finance and commerce and actually build a future if unfortunately you grow up in an area where you can't trust the institutions that we trust in Australia and the US. So I think sometimes we forget that not only is this really starting to progress in the crypto capital of the world, which the US is trying to become, but also in developing nations, crypto usage and adoption is pretty much their only hope. So it's quite interesting to think about that side of things as well. And for younger generation individuals to use crypto and use blockchain growing up will actually provide a lot of innovation and new technology when they become adults, because it's all they've known. So again, it's a bit of a side note, but I think it's something that a lot of the time we don't think about, that I think is really interesting as well.
Nice point. How about how all these schools, and it's like going to school is just going to be like, you know what I mean? It's going to be,
It's going to grow up with it.
Yep,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, kids, you're going to have 5-year-olds writing Python scripts.
Yeah. I mean, it's most kids these days have got phones by the time they're 7 or 8, right? Like, I didn't have a phone until I was about 15 or 16. So technologically, they're far more advanced than any of us were at that age, which means if they're using protocols and they're using, I don't know, Uniswap as an example, when they're young, to get an idea of how the world works, like, naturally they're just going to be drawn to blockchain. They're going to be drawn to decentralized platforms. They're not going to know what a bank is because their bank back home is super corrupt, or their fiat currency is suffering from hyperinflation. So it's just going to be interesting to see how this progresses as well with the younger generation over the next sort of 10 to 15 years.
For sure, no doubt about it. Nice point, interesting point. And then I think also everything in between, and also on the other end of the spectrum with folks who are elderly like myself, who jump on how we're going to see the well, very likely the integration, the interface, with the phone and and your banking app, where you're just going to have the digital wallet. I mean, I went on to, was it Citi? I went on to, and it's already there. I typed in, I'm pretty sure it was Citi. I typed in, I don't remember which one it was, but anyway, I had typed in digital wallet, and I was like, whoa, are you kidding me? There's actually a thing that on their website, then you can tap it, and you can take your credit card, load it on there. They've already got it going, and you can have it on your phone, have the app, digital wallet. So it's already starting to happen. It's kind of crazy. To me, this is really starting to take hold. And yeah, how will that be when the elderly like myself are having no issue whatsoever, using crypto on the phone to, how about real world assets and taking pieces of wealth and using that here and there, even with micropayments now with HBAR and the XRP ledger and Ripple doing that kind of stuff. So much we could talk about. Well, can I ask you this, do you want to get back to, we can get back to Caleb. I'm interested to talk about the, and I'm sure everybody is, the XRP ETF approvals, and how many are filed and how many are coming up this fall. We're very likely we're going to get a decision on these filings, on these S1s, right? And then what is it? The something 19B something, where the actual like New York Stock Exchange will actually file as well, and then like it gets approved by the SEC and we're good. It works something like that. I'm not sure, but I don't know. Help me with it if you know, and tell me what's important about, and tell the world, please, what's important about the XRP ETFs coming up, Jim. Besides, hopefully, over a little bit of time, sending XRP's price to a nice spot, never financial advice.
I can't speak to like the actual administration of what needs to get passed and where. That's a little above my knowledge base when it comes to how the ETFs actually gets approved. But I do know that, look, Polymarket's the prediction market, the crypto prediction market, that's usually pretty spot on, at least in terms of the probability it provides for things. And I had a look this morning just because, I was just having a look around at a few different markets, and the chance of an XRP ETF getting approved in 2025 is at 77%. So that's a very high likelihood, in my opinion. Naturally, there's a lot of interest in XRP. It's our largest asset held for clients under management. It's almost got like this cult following where people are big believers in it, and it has a lot of interesting utility and use cases moving forward. And it just makes sense that it'll probably be one of, if not the next asset to get that ETF exposure. And certainly if it was, and look, I only really can envision maybe Solana before it, but even then, I think XRP is far more likely. It just provides even more validity to an asset. It means that now there's more institutional exposure. One of the interesting trends that we've seen with Ethereum, which is starting to outperform Bitcoin, which is a sight for sore eyes for a lot of ETH holders, is that a lot of treasury businesses are now popping up that are holding ETH. Naturally, we've seen, the main treasury company that we all know in MicroStrategy, which really started this business model for Bitcoin. We're starting to see more and more pop up for Ethereum. And I have no doubt an element of that is due to the fact that they can get exposure through the ETF as opposed to having to hold the asset directly themselves. So I think if XRP was to become the next asset to get ETF filings, I think it is a really positive thing for new treasury companies potentially hold this ETF for it to be their sort of main purpose of business is to hold XRP. And I think that's a really exciting element to it. We've also seen that usually, things like futures markets. I know that CME Group recently launched an XRP futures. So traditional investors can invest in or speculate in the price of XRP. All of these things just speak to further liquidity, further demand. As much as we kind of all hate to say it, further speculation, which is a lot of what the crypto markets are. You can just look at the leveraged longs and shorts that are positioned every single day, and that does have an impact on the price in the long term. It also just means there's more capital going into specific assets. So, look, 77%, I like those odds. Whether that means it'll actually happen this year, I'm not quite sure. I think long term, we will see more assets like XRP have their own ETF, which I think will provide greater exposure to institutions to invest in these assets. And I think it's a net positive for the XRP ecosystem in the long term.
Interesting. Well said. And, I'm calling that a presidential poll that's at 77%. I'm saying with the pro-crypto White House, the landscape we're seeing, my personal opinion, that it's more like 87%. But don't forget.
It might rise shortly here. Let's see. I think it was at 84% the other week. So I don't know why it's dipped a little bit, but my money's on it definitely happening in 2025. I like the 77% odds. So we'll wait and see.
And Ethereum, by the way, getting ready to double, treble, 2x, 3x. At least in my opinion, nothing on the channel's financial advice. Been in this space for a little bit. Been through a couple runs, and I see that, probably very likely we're going to see, a 9-12K Ethereum at some point. We could top out at 8-9ish. Who knows? We could go higher. We could see a Bitcoin at, we're getting into price predictions now on the show. On the episode.
I'd be a very happy man if he did that. I'll be a very happy man.
Let's jump right into price there. Yeah. I bet a lot of folks, man, right? And it's like, my goodness, those of us who saw early in Bitcoin, who knows? Perhaps 2x, 3x, could be a 4 or 5x. We don't know. Could go to $500,000 before we freaking realize it. Not allowed to swear on the channel anymore. It's very disheartening to me. I can't offend. Takes away my passion a little bit. Here's the deal, man. Ethereum's going to kill it. Bitcoin's going to kill it. In my opinion. XRP, XLM, HBAR, XDC, digitizing trade finance. You got tons of them. You can start running through a whole bunch of them. All the U.S. patents going on XDC, on the Zinfin network. Out of Singapore, there's tons to check out. VeChain, Sunny Lu, former CTO, Louis Vuitton, China. That they got tons of connections with Walmart, China, BMW, blah 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 blah. You got Sui, you got your Doges, you got your Shibas, you got your Pepes, you got your Trump coins. You want to play around with those. There's a million ways to, even on meme things, in my opinion, to hold for a while, and then go ahead and wait till they go up a little bit. Make some X's, make some magnification on the money. We have a crazy Cambrian explosion coming to crypto. The likes of which I think may surprise all of us. I feel like I can be Moon Boy because I'm a contractor and I have no financial background to back up. I mean, I don't care. I have no I mean, I've got to be careful. I want to remain credible, but I mean, I think we all can see this is about to explode over the next years. We could see an extended, you know, bull market. What are your thoughts on that? On us getting an extended bull market, perhaps an extended run like we saw with the internet before the bubble popped, kind of thing, where everybody and their brother has crypto, and this crap just goes so crazy before the bottom falls out, except for the XRPs and the ones that stay strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's not financial advice, and I wouldn't say I'm the best predictor of these things, but I'm certainly of the belief, and I think as a business we are, that we've still got legs to run in this market, and certainly I'm quite optimistic that we'll have a strong Q4 and even into Q1 next year potentially. I just think that we're seeing, for all the reasons that we mentioned around the government support, what we're seeing get passed from a legislative perspective, but even just at where we're at in terms of, look, Bitcoin's really performed well and it's been the best asset to hold over the last sort of 2 or 3 years. But we're slowly starting to see some of the altcoins. We've seen ETH slowly start to now outperform Bitcoin, which we weren't even sure whether that was even going to happen again. But naturally in other bull cycles, it's been Bitcoin's led the charge, and then we've had a period of altcoin dominance where it started to outperform Bitcoin. Now we've kind of had this beginning of that, but I think I'm certainly of the belief that we've still got a few more legs to run. And technically, if you go by the 4-year cycle, this is the last year of the bull cycle, but I do think it may extend on into 2026. And, the reason for that is, we haven't gone through a bull cycle with that ETF adoption. We haven't had that level of institutional grade, sort of institutional, support with treasury businesses buying tons of Bitcoin and ETH. So I do think it's a bit, especially Bitcoin, it's far greater in terms of its resistance and, I guess, ability to withstand elements of the market that are a bit out of its control. But again, we could turn around tomorrow and a new war could start, and that may potentially have financial consequences where the US economy goes into recession. Like, there's a whole bunch of things at a macroeconomic level that will still impact a risk on asset like crypto. But ultimately, if things at a geopolitical level maybe stay the way they are or even improve, I do believe that there is a long period of time left for this bull cycle. So that's my belief. But again, we're all kind of guessing when it comes to the crypto space in the end.
We are.
Just when you think
Jim,
something will happen, the next thing will happen. So
for sure.
But we can remain hopeful.
For sure. Well said. I mean, yeah, it's so interesting. I'm seeing, interesting, all that, very interesting points. And, what do you think about this kind of all of this kind of happening at the same time for cryptocurrency, which is kind of what you just had mentioned, but just like the whole the pro crypto White House, just everything kind of lining up. Isn't it something like 28 bill a day being injected in, tuning to something like 3 trillion by the end of this year? So M2 money go crazy, right? Risk on assets go up like crazy. If we see, what do we have? 3 meetings left, FOMC meetings left. If we see interest rates drop, which if we watch cycles and back up, we're kind of due for a few. I know it's kind of like we've all been saying that and expecting it, and it hasn't happened. But, these next 3, we could see, it might be September, October, November, I'm pretty sure, for our next 3 meetings. If Chair Powell says, hey, you know what, let's lower the rates. And especially if we see a massive reduction with the first one, and we see stimmy checks come out, perhaps because tariffs are awesome here in the U.S. due to President Trump's moves. It's kind of all lining up. ETFs come in, money starts flowing in from those. Regulation starts taking effect as far as, maybe not law change. Clarity Act being finished up, kind of like, what happens with CFTC, Commodities Futures Trading Commission, that line being delineated between the SEC and them. And both of them really kind of liking crypto now in the US, at least for the next few years, right? So a lot of things lining up to see crypto crank. Never financial advice, but that's kind of what I'm seeing too.
Yeah. I think it's, as I mentioned at the start, a very exciting time to be in the crypto space. As we mentioned, it wasn't too long ago that, I even remember when people were still saying Bitcoin's a scam and this thing's going to zero. We're definitely past those days, but didn't feel like it was that long ago where even you were telling family members and they were like, are you sure you should be holding your assets in this? Are you sure you shouldn't just be holding stocks and things like that? So it's great that we're past that phase, but we've still got plenty of work to do when it comes to becoming more mainstream and ensuring that the everyday folk is across how beneficial this space can be for them. But yeah, we're on the right track, which is exciting. And for those that have been in the space for a fair bit of time, like yourself and I, it's nice to see this finally eventuate.
It really is. Amen to that. There's no question. Jim, let's get back to Caleb. We've got some time. We can either get into some comments. I'd rather we can always do that. I'd like for you to, what did we miss on Caleb in your mind? What did we miss concerning the differences and why we want to be, if you're just joining in, you're on Crypto Info Blockchain Meet Easy with Frank the Crypto Tank and Mr. Jim Bazzani from Caleb and Brown. We're going over the differences between Caleb and Brown, which is an exchange, a brokerage, and some of the other exchanges that a lot of us use, like Coinbase, Uphold, Kraken, and so forth. So, Jim, let's get back to Caleb. What did we miss on Caleb as far as the stark, obvious, clear differences?
I think we've touched on a lot of things. I think maybe, I'm just trying to think. I feel like we've touched on quite a lot. I do think maybe one of the other things that is important to note that, again, I speak about my personal experiences all the time because I just think it's probably the best example is when you hold your assets with us, and it's something that comes up a lot around, well, when I hold assets on an exchange, who really owns those assets? If something's to happen to that exchange, what happens to my assets? And as I said, I can speak to personal experience where I held a bunch of crypto on FTX, and then when FTX went down, it turned out my assets weren't actually on the platform. They were obviously traded elsewhere and nefariously used. And then those assets were part of a creditor's claim. And, a lot of people that held assets on FTX eventually got them back, but it was a few years later and it was at the price at that time versus what the price is now. So a lot of people didn't get the best result out of that. So I wanted to make it clear because it does come up quite a lot that if you are to use Caleb Brown and you custody your assets with us, we hold those assets on trust, but you are the beneficiary owner of those assets. So yes, we'll help with custodying those assets, but we're not the owners as a business of them. You as a client are the beneficial owner, which is really important when it comes to any bankruptcy claim, any liquidity claim. Again, I'm not insinuating anything. We are very much a healthy business. We're doing very well, but it's important to be across this if you're going to hold your assets elsewhere, and check to see that in the fine print of their terms and conditions or terms of business that you actually are the beneficial owner of those assets. Because often at times we've seen with FTX that if you did read in the fine print, you actually aren't. So with us, you are. So if we were to go bankrupt and we had to go through a claim, the client assets that we're custodying for clients would go directly straight away back to the clients. They don't form part of the business's assets. So I think that's good in terms of giving clients peace of mind that say something was to happen to us, or, one of the funniest questions I got quite often at the conference I was at was, well, what happens if the Australian government turns into anarchy or what have you, which is just ridiculous and would never happen. But even in that, incredibly unlikely scenario, if that happened, we aren't the owners of those assets. The government isn't the owner of those assets. Our clients are. So those funds would be returned. That's probably the first thing that we'd do. So it's important for clients, if you're going to custody them on platforms or exchanges, that you are aware of whether the ownership rights of those assets.
Crucial point to bring up. I sleep so well at night using Caleb and, locking a lot up on Caleb. Full transparency. I have no problem saying that on Fireblocks custody and mean to lock up a bunch more and bring as many people on board as I can to your your brokerage, because you guys are head and shoulders above anything I have seen, and you make me feel so much more comfortable doing this whole thing, this whole crypto thing, and my wife. And so, yeah, hats off to you guys for being really the first doing this, if not the first, large scale period doing this. And man, I just whatever we can do to help, guys, please tap the Caleb link down below, the affiliate link, to go to Caleb's site, Caleb and Brown's site. Certainly safe, of course, and check everything out we've been talking about. One more thing, a point I want to bring up, by the way, is navigability. Is that a word? Navigating your site is ultra smooth and simple and easy, in my opinion, and easy to find everything on the left-hand side. Drop downs and everything, very simple. You can also schedule an appointment out on a calendar with your broker. That's a cool feature you guys have. Very interesting stuff. You want to talk about any of that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right in that we've created a portal experience that we think is really easy to use. That's one of the pain points for, even myself today. Like, I've been around crypto and have dabbled in a whole bunch of protocols and ecosystems. And even today, the user experience on some of them is almost so confusing to use that I give up. So I can't imagine what it's like for new people to crypto. So we've had that in mind when it comes to developing a product that is so easy to use and straightforward for our clients, while providing all the necessary information that they need on their portfolio. So you're exactly right. It's an easy to use interface. You can still do things like set up target orders that Frank mentioned before. You can DCA. You can do direct one-for-one swaps, buy, sell crypto, all within your portal. So it is very easy to use. And I think that's one of the benefits. Again, if you're maybe someone that isn't too tech savvy, you can use this portal. It's relatively straightforward, but then you can also email your broker if you want to go down that route as well. So it gives you that level of optionality that I think is needed in crypto.
I think so, 100%. I agree 100%. And another point kind of related to this is, hopping on and looking at these targeters and be able to just hop on anytime I want to so simply and easily onto Caleb and just being like, all right, you know what? I think I'm going to change that one. I think I'm going to change this one, and just being like, this is so simple to use. And by the way, I can see on Caleb, when I'm on that screen, I can see what I've laid out for my targeters. I can click on one of them, see I'll lay out, like, never financial advice, but I'll lay out kind of like, 4 to 6 of them on the way up the mountain, kind of like towards the top, on the way down, what I think is, who can call the top, right? And they may change, but that's what I do personally. Never financial advice, but I can do that and pull them up on a quick snapshot on your site. And it's so easy to see, just so quickly, where, these are targeters where I hope these prices are going, not financial advice, but like, it's kind of cool where I believe my future wealth is going on some of these things, and to know the comfortability of peace of mind that, oh my goodness, I'm good to go. I mean, I've talked to my bank. They're cool with Caleb. Done my test, my wire transfer. So they have a template, of course, right at the bank, that they want to establish a connection with Caleb. They want to establish a history, is really what it is, right? With details of Caleb and where it's coming from and the account and everything else. And once that happens, generally speaking, as long as your bank manager knows and they're crypto friendly bank and you've cleared it, like you said, it's good to go. You're good to go ahead and grab your money off crypto, your winnings that are happening that at that point in time, which is crucial. Stuff doesn't run forever. I mean, and when you mentioned it before, and you want to buy when it's low too at those crucial points. Well, this stuff's cranking up. I don't want to be a multimillionaire on paper. I want to take this stuff off when I want to take it off, and monstrous amounts sometimes. So thank the good, great Lord for the Caleb and Brown. My goodness. I don't know what we would do without you guys. I'm not kidding. And that's about to really be seen, in my opinion, not financial advice, coming up when we see what happens with some of the exchanges. I hope that is not true. I hope that everything is smooth coming up moving forward, with the rest of this run. By the way, key support levels being held. Any thoughts on the market itself and where we are in the bull market? You want any price predictions? Because I don't know if we're ready to close this puppy out or not. We've been on for quite some time. I'll talk as long as you'd like.
I think price predictions I'm going to steer clear of, just because I've gotten that wrong plenty of times. But in terms of how the market is currently looking, it's very positive. As I mentioned, we chatted before around, Bitcoin usually leads the way and then it flows into the altcoin space, and Ethereum's now starting to outperform Bitcoin, which usually means, people love to phrase it as altcoin season. I think we're slowly getting towards that point. Although in saying that, like, we've seen Bitcoin still perform and hit its all-time high last week. So I think Bitcoin still has room to run, and that's why, yes, it's always great to look back at previous bull cycles and see what happened then. You can't always extrapolate that to the future. I think this cycle is very different from the one in 2021. So I do think Bitcoin still has a few legs to run. I think then the altcoins in the space do as well. So no price predictions on my end. But as I mentioned, I think we'll probably see a top in Q4, maybe Q1 of next year. But again, who knows? Who knows? So it's exciting time, and I think taking profit is also, you mentioned that's something that I very much am going to try and do in this cycle. It's not one that I've done before, and I've definitely round trip a few times. So at least having a profit taking strategy in place is really important, and that's something that we help our clients with at Caleb Brown as well. Whether you actually execute on that profit taking strategy is a whole other thing altogether. But I think having a plan and strategy in place is good, because as these things continue to rise, your expectations and your benchmarks continue to rise as well. So it's good to have something to ground you.
Absolutely agree, Jim. Jim, no sweat with the no price predictions. I understand. No problem there. And I totally get it too, for obvious reasons. But yeah, now that I'm seeing it, but yeah, when it comes to where this whole thing could go, in my opinion, and I'll speak for myself, never financial advice. I round tripped my bags last time. Of course, the positive side of that is I was able to hang on to a whole bunch and then go ahead and keep DCAing and also buying dips and things, over that whole period. But nobody wants to round trip, and we did get. I mean, in all fairness, we did get the dead cat bounce last time. It was kind of like we're like, "Is this thing gonna go?" And then it just didn't, and that was it. And it kind of think faked a lot of people out. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I'm not interested in round tripping this time either.
Yeah, no, certainly not interested in round tripping. We have seen a bit of a consolidation period over the last couple of days, which was to be expected. Like we saw ETH rise by 9-10% in a day, and all the other assets around it start to rise. And nothing's ever going to be linear in terms of it just continuing to grow up. So we have seen a bit of regression over the last sort of 3 or 4 days, but I'm a big believer that it's a positive trend upwards. And yeah, round tripping is something we've all done. And that's why I mentioned at least having a strategy that's written down and in place is important. Whether you actually execute upon it's a whole nother thing altogether. But you can at least then see where your expectations have changed. So if I set what I think my sell price should be today, and then in 6 months, it's far exceeded that, you then at least know, okay, well, my expectations have clearly changed as this asset's continued to rise in price. And that, in fact, if I thought that this was a great sell price 6 months ago and it's past that, maybe I'm at a point now where I should start to sell some of my portfolio. And that's some of the other, one of the other things that I think we all are guilty of is thinking of selling out as a binary event of I either sell nothing or I sell it all. It's not the case at all. You can really sell, you could sell 20% at a certain price target, then another 20% at another. You could sell just out your initial and then ride the profits. Like there's a whole range of different ways to play this. I think sometimes we are stuck in that binary mindset of the two. So that's also something that, again, we speak to our clients about all the time.
I agree 100%. And from personal experience, just my opinion, I agree with that 100%. It's like, and I'm guilty of that too, and a lot of us are, I think, and it's sensible, right? We're here in the duality, the yes, no, the on, off, the good, bad, the black, white. I mean, it's always this thing with us where where's that middle ground of things, that balance, where let's not arrest ourselves just because we think, oh my gosh, if I don't, let's do a little bit. Why not? Personally, myself speaking, what I'm gonna do is, and it's not financial advice, this is my opinion, how I wanna handle it this time, the wife and I, is, gotta cash out on a whole number of the ISOs and things like that, and some memes and so forth, and some Bitcoin and some Ethereum and some Solana and so forth, and then, stay tethered to to the crypto market is what we'd like to do, and not just go ahead and dump everything, and be hanging around for you know, the next time around kind of thing, maybe take some lifestyle shifts and so forth. And, also, do we really want to take everything and put it all into USD or Australian dollar or whatever we're
Mm,
using? You know what I mean?
mm.
Given the idea that our bank's going to start giving us, you know, percentage yields on crypto of ours that they're holding. I don't know. There's that whole consideration.
Yeah, it's something that I'm actually battling with right now, especially, the Australian dollar here is pretty weak compared to other currencies like the US and the euro. So it's finally something I'm actually thinking about because I am looking to potentially exit at some point in this cycle. But then, yeah, do I really want to hold fiat? Probably not. So yeah, I think it's something we've all got to consider when it comes time to exit, whether you hold stables or what you do with your profits. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
It's good. It's an interesting ride. Um, Now, what else shall we cover, my good sir, in this talk, or did we
I think
cover
we've covered
everything?
everything. To be honest, yeah, I think we did a good job. And if anything comes to mind, or there's some new announcements on my end, I can always come back on and we can do another one of these. But
Would you please? Yeah,
yeah, I think we covered most things, which is great. I think
good.
for anyone that's maybe listening to this in real time or after the fact, make sure you use, as you mentioned, Crypto Info's Callum Brown link below if you wanted to try the service. That'll give you priority access to a broker, and as we mentioned, it's completely free to try the service. So you may as well give it a go and see if it's right for you. And yeah, let us know if you enjoyed this chat. We can always do another one in the future. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Frank. I've enjoyed our chat.
Oh, you're so welcome, my good man, and we appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us and sharing your knowledge about Caleb and the market and everything in the state of affairs, what we're dealing with. Thanks for coming on, Jim. Please, we would love to have you back on a
Absolutely.
future episode here. We can talk about that later, but um, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day there, Jim. There in Australia. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for joining us on this first live interview. Crypto Info, Blockchain Made Easy with your host, Frank the Crypto Tank. Thank you to Jim Bazzani from Caleb and Brown for joining us. We hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Jim. We'll see you later.
Thanks, guys.